Here we're going to open up a file, and I want to take you on a little tour of Photoshop, show you where things are located, how to navigate around your image, some shortcuts and that kind of thing. So when you're opening up a file, if you opened up Photoshop, you should see some of your recent images that you had worked on. You can also just double click on any one of these to open it up. You can also go under File, Open to go locate them. And something I find really handy is Open Recent. So if I don't see it in any of these thumbnails here, especially if I have an image already open, let's go ahead and try that. I'll show you how this works. I'm going to double or single click that one, it'll open up. But let's say I wanted to open up an image that I worked on in the past, but I want to work on again. Say Open Recent, and it will keep a list of the files that you had edited or worked on in a previous session. I don't know how many this is, maybe 20. And so the most recent one will be at the top, and then chronologically goes down below. And so if you wanted to open up something else like this image, you can. It's a camera raw file, so we'll open that one up. Cool. Okay. So you can open it up in multiple ways. What I want to do here is, let's go back to this image, is, and one thing I probably should have pointed out, when you have multiple images open, Photoshop tabs them together. So here you can see this image here, you can see this image name here. If I had multiple images, they would be little tabs here, and you can click on each name accordingly to edit that particular file. Cool. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at a couple little features of Photoshop, how it's laid out, some menu items, and kind of how to customize your workspace. I'll also throw in a few shortcuts so that it makes it a little easier and faster for you to work on your images. Shortcuts are really, really powerful and handy. Don't stress if you don't get them right away, but try to implement those and include those in your workflow, in your process. Okay, so let's take a look at the way Photoshop is laid out. Across the top, we have our menus, our main menu items. Just like any other application, we have, under Photoshop, you can set preferences. Under the file, this is where you will deal with any file. So you want to create a new file, open a file, export, images and whatnot. We'll cover some of these, not all of them. The class would take 2 or 3 semesters to cover everything. Edit menu, again, if you're editing certain features of the file or the image menu, layer, and so on. Okay, we'll cover at least pieces of all of these. We may not cover every single item, but if there's something specific you need, you can find a tutorial online or ask me a question and I can kind of help you along with that. Okay, so we have our menu items at the top. Along the left-hand side, we have our tools, our Photoshop toolbar. And if you roll over and pause for a second, it kind of shows you how to work it, but also the little letter within the parentheses, so it says Move Tool with a V. The V is the shortcut, so anything within those parentheses is the shortcut. This is the elliptical marquee tool, M, lasso tool, and so on. It may be hard to see on the monitor, but in the lower right-hand corner of these icons right here, so you see like a little tiny, it looks like a little arrow, little pointer. If you press and hold, that'll show you that you have multiple items within that tool. So I have the Move tool and the Artboard tool under here. On this one, rectangular marquee and elliptical marquee. Lasso tool. We have the regular lasso tool, polygonal, and magnetic. And we'll cover a lot of these, as we go along. So I'm not going to go through each and every single one of these right now. Quick selection, magic wand. So these are our selection tools. This is our cropping tool, eyedropper, and so on. Okay, so all our tools on the left-hand side is where they're situated. Now you have this little double arrow here. I can expand that out so they're, instead of one long one, they're basically 2 columns of tools, or I can click this again and go down to 1. Each tool, again, I'll reiterate all this stuff, is each tool has options. So you can see here with the Move tool, I have a certain set of options along the top. So you have the tool down the left, and you will have the options along the top. If I change the tool, notice the options change. Lasso tool, slightly different. You know, the quick selection, crop tool, eyedropper, and so on. Each of these tools has its own set of options along the top. It helps refine the tool and helps you specify certain features of the tool that you want or that you might need. What else can I tell you? So we have the tools here along the left side, options along the top. On the right hand side is typically where the palettes go. And if you aren't sure of where a palette is, or when you need to pull up a palette again, go under the window menu. This is a list of all the palettes from here down, of all the palettes available in Photoshop. Some of them you will use quite frequently, some of them you might not use at all. And so this one, I don't know if I've ever used that one, Glyphs. So maybe we will, we'll see. Anyway, so we have our palettes here, and then if you can't find an image for some reason, they're located at the bottom here. This is how you list the open images. You know, I want to switch to the other image here. Click on that one, go back here and click on this one, or I can use the tabs along the top. As you'll see as we go through Photoshop, there are multiple ways to do the exact same thing. It all depends on your process, your workflow, what somebody else has demonstrated to you. So there's no right or wrong way to do this. Some are more efficient than others, but again, you know, there's no right or wrong. Let's see what else. So we have our palettes here. One of the things that we're going to deal with, you know, extensively is the layers palette. And so again, I'm going to cover some of these palettes as we move through, and I'm not going to cover them all right now, but I just want to show you where they're located. So here, you know, we have our history palette. This is our actions palette. And again, if you pause on some of these things, you'll actually see what they say and do, info palette, and so on. The more you use these, the more you'll get accustomed to what palettes are what. You can also, let's say you have a you've developed your workflow, you use a certain set of palettes quite often. You can either use Photoshop's predefined palette layout. So this is the essentials, so I'll click on that, and that's my essentials. So here, if I'm mostly graphic and web design, click on that, and you'll get a slightly different set of palettes. Notice the layers palette is below, and it's more character text-based palettes up top here. And then we have the libraries, which we'll cover in the future. Photography, again, you can use this, whatever you choose. Painting, a lot more brush heavy and color swatches. Motion graphics, and you know, you can see down here a timeline. Photoshop, you can do little animations and even have video layers. I'm not going to cover that in this class or 3D, because it's just something that's kind of not super common for the use in Photoshop. Although you can do it, there are other, in my opinion, better tools suited for video editing and 3D. You know, it's kind of cool that you can do it in Photoshop, but then I've never used it in my work or my business. Okay, so here I'm going to choose the essentials again. But let's say, you know, you've realized you wanted to have a different palette open all the time. Let's say you like the, I don't know, info palette. And so I'm going to grab that. I can take this and put this here, so I can redock these however I want them, put it in here so it's always open. So, you know, if you needed to, you can actually peel these off. And what's this one? This is Histogram, which is great to have. I can take that, and let's say I want to put that at the top. So now I have my histogram up here, and I can, you know, have it open all the time. Now, if you want, like I just did by accident, if you want it out of there, you can just drag it out. When you get this horizontal bar, that means you're going to put it in here. But if I said, let's go with the brush here, and I want to dock it as a tab, you'll see the blue rectangle. It's going to put it as a tab here instead of popping it out off the side. If you want it to be a window on its own, like this one, then you can go ahead and you'll see that little blue bar. Again, if you don't want it there, you can just drag it off. It comes out of these palettes here, but if you wanted the shortcut palettes, which is this little bar here, I can just drag it anywhere in here in that little section. Okay, so now my histogram is here. Sometimes it's a little challenging to remember what icon goes with what, but as you use it more and more, you'll see it gets easier. Okay, now if you did that and you wanted your own custom palettes, let me make this full width here. You wanted your own custom palettes, you can go in here and say new workspace, and I say, oops, don't want all that. Okay, and you can specify the keyboard shortcuts, menus, and toolbar. Why not? And click Save. Cool. So now, under here, I have my own GPH workspace. So if I change it to photography, and I said, I want to go back to my GPH, I can do that. So it's a nice, simple way to customize your workspace. When you're working in the workspace, regardless of which one it is, so let's change photography for the heck of it, you need to be able to navigate around your image. When you're editing, you don't want to necessarily work on it at this magnification or this zoom level. The reason is that there might be some details in the image that you really, really need to see, and you need to see them up close. And so there's ways to zoom in and out. Again, multiple ways to do the exact same thing, and I will show you how to zoom in and move around your image right now. So I brought up the photography workspace so that you could see the navigator up here. Now the navigator lets you zoom in like this. The little red rectangle shows you what you're actually looking at. So if I move this red rectangle around, you can see I'm working on this area. If I want to look over here, I can look at this area, and so on. I can zoom in or zoom out with this navigator tool. I can also click on little mountain shapes to zoom in at predefined values. You can zoom way out. I'm like, wow, that's tiny. Very tiny image. Little postage stamp. Or I can zoom way in. So here, whoops, you want to zoom in, and let's move that little rectangle. Let's go over here. What you're seeing is pixels. These are what your image is comprised of. Any digital image is comprised of individual pixels, and each pixel can have only one color at a time. So you can adjust those colors and shift those colors, but basically you're creating an image with pixels. So when we'll take a look at the image pixel dimensions and size and resolution here in a bit, you'll see how those are distributed. Okay, so we can use the navigator to move around our image. You can also use the keyboard shortcuts. So we have Command or Control plus. When I say Command, that's a Mac thing. When I say Control, it's a PC thing. So Command or Control plus zooms in, minus zooms out. And if you look at the navigator in the corner, you'll see that that little arrow on the slider is going left or right. Command plus making it larger, Command minus making it smaller. Okay, so you can zoom in and out. Now, it may not be where you want it, so maybe I want to actually look over here to the left, but my window is here. So I can either use the navigator and move this over, or my preferred approach, and this is where the shortcuts come into play, is I use the space bar. Now, any tool you're on, if you hold down the space bar, you'll get the little hand tool. The hand tool lets me pan around my image. Okay, so I'm not moving anything in the image, and you can see over here in the navigator as I move around with the hand tool, that little red rectangle moves around as well. Again, you can zoom out, Spacebar, use the hand tool. Let go of the spacebar, and now I have whatever tool I'm on. So if I'm on the move tool, and don't be confused with the move tool, meaning moving around your image. The move tool, it's hard to say, move tool allows you to move layers or pieces of your image in the context of the document. Here, all we're doing is panning around or moving the view of the image, not actual information. So don't use the move tool to move around the image like we are now. You're going to use the hand tool with using the space bar as the way to pan around or move around your image. You can also, like I said, we have multiple ways of doing the same thing. Oops, cancel. I have a cat, and my cat is rubbing up against my microphone. Okay, so anyway, just curious, says she wants to learn Photoshop as well. Okay, so here, like I said, we have multiple ways to do the exact same thing. And I have the magnifier tool. It does the same thing as this, zooming in, zooming out, Command plus, Command minus. If I have the zoom tool, shortcut is the letter Z for zoom. Very handy, very clever of them. And I click and I zoom in. You can switch up here, hit the minus sign to zoom out, and you've got that all situated. Okay, so you can use the zoom tool in or out. And what else? I will need to put this down in a list because there's all these different options. So again, with the navigator, zooming in, out, and panning around. Command plus to zoom in, or Command or Control plus to zoom in, Command or Control minus sign to zoom out. You have the zoom tool here, and you can see also here I have the hand tool. The shortcut is the H, and it does the same thing. Well, if it's not zoomed in, it won't let you do anything, but with the hand tool here, I can pan around the image as well. But wait, there's more. I have one more way for you to zoom in and zoom out. Now, don't get overwhelmed with all these different options. Adopt one and use it. If you find that there's some better way or you want to try something different, do it. I highly recommend it. Okay, so find the way that works best for you, that you remember how to do it. Okay, so here, I'm going to grab any tool. Let's grab the lasso tool for the heck of it. And let's say I am holding the space bar down and I'm panning around, meaning checking out different areas of my image. Now, I can do the plus and minus, which is actually pretty handy because my hand is already on the keyboard. If you wanted to, hold down the space bar. If I hold down the command key at the same time, so space bar gives me the hand tool, space bar plus command key gives me zoom in, and it's command key on the Mac, control key on the PC, or space bar and the option or alt key gives me the zoom out. So if I'm working on my image, I can zoom in, move around, make my edits by letting go of the mouse and just doing whatever I'm doing. Spacebar command to zoom in more, or spacebar option or alt key to zoom back out. Okay, so you have multiple ways to do this, and I don't mean to overwhelm things, but you should be able to go back and replay this video so that you can actually get a handle on the different options here. Okay, so really that's the key with this one, is to go ahead and navigate around your image. We'll deal with the tools as we move forward, but right now I just wanted to show you the lay of the land here. We have our toolbar on the left-hand side. Our toolbar options are our tool options at the top. We have all our palettes on the right-hand side, and then we have our menu items along the top. Okay, so I will specify either in text or, when we go through the videos, I'll say, under menu, whatever. So the menu would be up here at the very, very top, and I'll say use the tools along the left-hand side, and you should be able to see what I'm doing. I will give the shortcuts as we do them, and then you can navigate through your image. One last thing, and then we'll close out this video, is when you're working, I'm working on a laptop, and the screen real estate is kind of at a premium. So when I'm working, if I'm zoomed way in here, you can see I only have this area from here to here because of all these palettes. One of the nice features about Photoshop it allows you to do is hide the palettes temporarily, continue your editing, and then bring them back when you need them. If I hit the Tab key once, notice the palettes go away. I still have the stuff along the top here, but and my menu items, but my palettes are gone. I'm on this particular tool. Again, I can pan around with the spacebar only, or spacebar Command or Control to zoom in, spacebar Option or Alt to zoom out, or I can use plus and Command plus or Control plus, and Command or Control minus to zoom out. When I'm ready to choose a different tool or do something else, hit the Tab key again, and voila, my palettes are coming back, and I have everything that I need. Okay, that's it for this video on navigating and getting around Photoshop. We'll go ahead and talk about some other features of Photoshop in separate videos.